Well, hi, welcome to my latest video. Well, this one is, I guess, officially part 6 of my new high-end content creator rig build. What I'm going to do in this video, which I guess it's really the first one that I'm actually putting anything together. Up to this point, parts 1 through 5, we're showing you the lead up to this build. Maybe I should just call this part 6-1. I'll decide that later. Anyway, we're going to take the motherboard, the Asus ProArt Z790 Wi-Fi that I've showed you before in one of the build-up videos, and we're going to populate it. I have here the CPU, the i9 from Intel, 14900K. I have actually two 64 gig kits of memory. They are the G-Skill Ripjaws, and these particular ones, I didn't get them particularly fast, so they'll go up to 5600 in terms of speed. I'm not sure if I'll put both kits in initially. I may just put one and see how it works out, because we still have that issue that came out with DDR5, that when you put two kits of memory into a 4-slot motherboard, which this is, they haven't quite worked out all of the bugs on that, so you don't tend to get the full speed that's capable of the actual DIMMs that you bought. So I may not be able to get 5600 if I put both in, but if I can get 5200, I'll be happy with that. We'll see, but I'm going to do it one step at a time. I also got two. I think I might have shown only one originally, but I went ahead and got another one. The Western Digital Black M.2 4 terabytes. So between these two, they'll each go into the motherboard, which does support up to 4 M.2s. I'll be using the first two M.2 slots in order to populate these. I mean, this is going to be content creator, so it's going to have a lot of storage and a lot of fast storage. These go at 7300, I believe, when I did the test on it. Yeah, I think they go 7300 in terms of actual speed. So that's a big jump up from, 7300 it has actually on the box. And I think when I tested it, we did get that. I also have here, obviously, I want to use the exact power supply. So I have my Thermaltake 1200 watt fully modular PSU, which does support both the ATX 3.0 and the special 12 volt connector that's needed for a 4090 or NVIDIA type video card. As you may recall, I actually have a 4090, which I have not powered up yet. I hate to say, that I have it sitting there for that long, but we'll find out pretty soon. Probably not in this part, but maybe the next part, or at the latest, the part after that. So part 6-3. By then I will have put that in and we've done some preliminary testing on it. In order to put this together on the table, which is what I'm going to do here, I'm going to also need to use a cooler that I have sitting on the shelf. Now, this is not going to go in it. As you recall, this is going to be a custom water cooling loop that supports this high-end PC. But I do have this cooler that eventually might go on one of my wet benches that I have, the test benches, the one that has room for a cooler. So it eventually may go on there, and we'll use it for that purpose. It has a pretty easy connection to the motherboard, so that's what I like about it too. It's not meant to be long-term, just for any preliminary testing that we need to do, like hopefully we'll get to in this video. So let me go ahead now and start taking stuff out. I'll use the overhead and we'll see how it all goes. Okay, here's the motherboard. Let me take it out of its box. What do we have here? I believe this is the antenna. Yeah, this is the Wi-Fi antenna. So I'll just put that aside for now. We don't need it right now. Take the motherboard out of its box. Let me leave it closed for a moment as I go ahead now and take the other things that I need from the bottom. I'll take out, obviously, the manual. Although what I already did is I produced a manual cheat sheet from the online version, so I can see all the important things I need to do when I'm putting the motherboard wires and cabling and other configuration together. Leave that in there for now. Let's get underneath this. And in here, I don't need that. I don't need the DisplayPort cable. I'm not going to use that right now. I do want the Q connector, so I'll take that out. I don't need the extra M2 things. I will take some of these M2 buffers, the things that allow you to put it away from the board, because I think mine, I'll take this little plug out for the extra hole as well. I'll also take the speaker out. Although this didn't come with the kit as I showed before, I added it myself. I buy those by the group of 10. There we go. I'm taking 2 of these little jump pads to allow us to take it off the motherboard, the M2s. I don't need any of the SATA cables. I'll leave that in there. Let's see, do I need the ruler? No, I can live without the ruler right now. So I think that's everything that I need for now out of the motherboard box. And I'll close it up here. Okay, let me take it out of its packaging. Before I lose it, let me put that little plug in here. I'll have to take it off again before I put the motherboard inside of the case, but I'll put it on there for now. Again, that's just to cover up the screw hole, not to gather dust, right? That's all that's for. So, the first thing is always the CPU, correct? So let me get a close-up of that. Might be easier to orient it a little bit this way though, so I can get a better look at it. Okay, the first thing we need to do is open up this latch, right? So we have to push it down and go underneath and then pull it straight up. We then open up the cover of the CPU, which opens up in this direction. Let's get a better look at this as we go into this. If you look very carefully, there is little triangles that are present on the socket itself. So the one that has the triangle that we're most interested in is right over here, which means that the CPU has to be oriented with that part down. I have the CPU sitting here in the case right now. Let me take it out of its package. And I'll carefully grab it by the edges, and I will orient the triangle appropriately. So the triangle is over here, just like it is on this one over here. So I will gently put the CPU down into the socket, very gently. It should fall into place nicely. I like to wiggle it back and forth a little bit. And then once it's in there, I will close the case, pushing that down, and it should pop the cover right off. There we go. Okay? And once that's down, make sure it falls underneath that little latch here, and we will push it like this until it's completely closed. Okay, so now the CPU is in place. Make sure you save the cover, put it back in the box, and keep it with the box. I like to keep my boxes anyway, so I'll make sure I retain that. And that's it for the CPU being installed. I'll be putting some thermal paste and a cooler on there very shortly, but for now this is good enough. Let me start putting in the other components. The next easiest one to put into is the M2 drive. Okay, so first let me take off this heatsink from this M2-1. There's 2 captured screws on it. And it should just come right out. It has the thermal insulator down at the bottom here, so we have to make sure that we take that off. I'll do that now before I forget. Take the thermal insulator off. Like that. Put it on the side here. Here's the M2 drive in its package. I will take it out. Now this one happens to have a nice system, as I said before. To actually lock it in place, you just have this little thing. You don't need a screwdriver. So it's going to plug in over here on this side. Now this particular M2 already has the chip underneath on both sides. So I don't need those little insulators that I took out of the package before, out of the case. These little stickers right here, I don't need them. I could just go right ahead and take the M2 and plug it right into this little socket right here at the 45-degree angle. And we'll get it in there, and we'll push it right into place, like that, at a 45-degree angle over here. And then we just sort of push it down. And now all we should have to do is just sort of spin this little locking lever. That's right over here. Make sure it's oriented right. And we just take this, and we just sort of twist it, turn this just slightly like this until it locks in place. Just like that. And now the first M2 is in. Okay, now let's get the heatsink back on. Make sure that it's oriented right. Remember, this is the right way with the little color part pointing down to the bottom of the board. You don't want to get that wrong. And you put this on here, make sure that the screw gets into the little position that it needs to be into. There we go. And then we can tighten this guy down at both ends. Okay, not too tight. And now we're secured properly. Plenty of room now for the graphics card once we put it in place. One thing I may have mentioned before, this has the actual button here that allows you to push it and activate the connector on it. Let me push this back a little bit, you can see what I mean. So this little button here, what does it do? It automatically activates this little part right here to unlock the video card when it's in place. You see it going there? Back and forth? That's what that is. Just thought I'd point that out just in case I didn't mention it before. Okay, now let's get the second M.2 installed here. I'll take off the heatsink. There we go. And it's going to go right into this slot. The same as before, since we have chips on the bottom. Right? Since we have chips on the bottom of this one, we don't need that little pad. We can use the one that's already there. Make sure that this little latch is open. And then we will put this in at an angle, 45 degrees. And push that into place, like that. And then we can push it down. We just have to turn this little latch here with our finger. That one's being stubborn. I'll have to take the screwdriver to help it along a little bit. There we go. It sort of got caught underneath this plastic part here. And then on here, we got to take off the little protector from the thermal pad. Take some finesse. There we go. And then we can put it right back in place. There we go. Now we found center in the screws. We can get this guy bolted down. Okay, wonder if this label comes off easily. I don't think I want that there right now. Let me pull this off. Makes it look a little more professional. They're just showing you how to use the latches. Now let's get this thing oriented so that I can get to the memory. The memory is right over here. I'm going to put two of the memories in. This one and this one, the B's. So let me go ahead and take the memory out of its package. I like to put the furthest one in first, making sure that this notch is in the right place. There we go. It has to go this way. Open up all of the connectors first. It only opens on one side. So we're going to put these in. Make sure they're in the slots. Push them down. And we'll push down till we hear two snaps. Two snaps. There we go. The same thing, orient it the same way, make sure the notch is there, and push it down into place. Make sure it's in the slots. We push it down, two clicks. There we go. So now we have all the components in that we need to put in for now. Okay, it looks like I just need to connect two of the power connectors to the motherboard. The first one is the standard 24-pin motherboard power cable. It's already plugged into the power supply, so I have to just plug it in over here. There we go. It clicked in place. And I'm only going to connect one of the CPU connectors. There's no reason to connect both of them, so I'll connect that right over here. This one connector, I won't put both, I'll just put the one for now. When I put it in the case, I'll definitely put both. It snaps right in place. And that should be enough power to drive us. I have the power supply already set up appropriately with the connectors on it. The main 24 and the one connector for the CPU. Okay. Now the final thing I'll have to do is put on the cooler. But I'm going to go ahead and clean this off first. Okay, let me put the bracket on first for the cooler. Make sure it's oriented right. It says Intel on the top. It has to go to the top of the board. So I'll pick the motherboard up. I'll push it into the bottom. This is already used on a 1700, so it should just go right into place like that. Let me go ahead now and clean off the CPU and the platen for the cooler. Isopropyl alcohol, 99%. Let me clean this guy off. Just polish it a bit. Make sure there's no residual. I'm going to clean it real good before it goes in the case though, however, as you can imagine, right? And then I'll clean the platen off too. This has been used before. I took it off and replaced it on my other 12th gen system. I think that's probably good enough for the purposes of this. Let me put some thermal paste on this. Doesn't have to be perfect. Now we can put the cooler platen on. And the spring-loaded screws. I am going to do them finger tight for now, because there's no reason to get carried away with this for a temporary situation that I have here, just for purposes of making sure that it posts and that it fires up. That should be more than enough. There we go. Now let's make sure I got the fan hooked up. Only one connector for the 3 fans, so I'll just put that in there. Into the CPU fan connector for it. That way it'll sense that there's cooling. Got the cooler all in position. I won't hook up the RGB. There's no need for that. Okay, let's power the thing on. The yellow one, in terms of my switches here, is the one that powers it on. Let me go ahead and push that button and see what we get. I see lights over here. I see red lights coming on. That's a good sign. Yellow. I guess the memory's training right now. That's why it's taken so long, hopefully. Oops, went off. It's white. I heard the beep, single beep. I'm capturing the screen too. There we go, it's up into the AMI. It's asking me to hit F1 to run setup. F1, what do we get? We're into the BIOS. The CPU temperature is kind of hot right now. So I'm gonna have to take a look at that cooler again a little bit, because it's not really doing much for us at this point. Motherboard temperature is only that, but the CPU is just too hot at this point to be useful. Now it's going up to 89. I'll have to reset that cooler and find out what's going on. But it is up, it did boot, and I'll have to see, it dropped down to 88, so it's got a little bit of cooling on here. I'll have to tighten that down quite a bit to see what we get. Maybe it just needs to be tightened down. So at least it came up, and so this sees both of the Western Digital 4 terabyte drives. The memory came up. Oh, XMP is enabled, so it came up 5600. Okay, that's good. Let me go ahead and reset that cooler, and then I will try again. Plug that guy in, there we go. I won't plug the RGB as I said. Okay, now that we've had the pump plugged in, and we've had a few minutes to also cool things down a little bit, let's try it again. I'll go ahead and power this on and see what we get. It's coming up. See the red, green, a beep. And we made it. We're into the BIOS. Okay, the temperature is much better, 48 degrees centigrade, 50. Heating up a little bit, but still much better than it was, and definitely good enough for me to do some testing. So at this point, we don't have an operating system installed on this thing. Let me go ahead and install Windows 10. It's the easiest one to get installed. And then we'll see what happens. We'll see if it comes into Windows or not. And if it does, we'll consider this particular thing completed. So let me go ahead and shut down, and we'll take it from there. Okay, I've gone ahead and installed Windows 10. It's the easiest one for me to do. I didn't bother showing that here in this video. I have separate videos where that's covered, so let me just go ahead and power it on and see what we got. It's coming up. Guess the memory's all trained now. Beep, that was fast. And it's into Windows 10. That's what I installed. Let me go ahead and show you that. And we're up and running. By the way, I also have the 10 gig interface adapter running. If I show you here, you'll see what I mean. I didn't have to install any drivers or anything. So let me go into networks and sharing, change adapter settings, and you see the only adapter that I have enabled right now is Ethernet 2, which is the Marvell AQ Shun 10 gigabit interface, and I see it on my switch too. It's in full 10 gig mode. It also shows on the back of the motherboard where the cable is connected, also in 10 gigabit mode. Let me see if I can bring that up and show it to you without dropping stuff. And there you go. You see on the white internet connector, you see both green connections showing there, so we're looking good. Also, let me check to see if we have both disks up. I didn't check that yet. So if I go into I only see drive C. So let me go ahead and do a disk manager, create partitions. Oh, the first thing it does is it says it sees a disk 1. Disk 0 is the boot disk. See the disk 1 that's not formatted. Do I want to format it? Why not? Say OK. I see the lights on the disk blinking pretty rapidly here. And it's done. It has no allocated space on it. So what I'll do is I'll right click on it and say a new simple volume. It's going to default. It'll be drive D. That's fine with me. Taking defaults and everything else, and there we are, and now popped up into the other window. So now I have two 4 terabyte M2 drives on here. Okay, so we're looking good. I won't do any testing right in this video. I'll probably either make a separate video for that, maybe not, we'll see, or I may go right to the next part of completing this build. I think that it might be good to run a couple of tests while we're here, but we'll see. Let me think about it first. Well, until the next time, thanks for watching.